have between our hard-coded page and our blog page. After this, we get some of these styling things worked out, then we'll move towards making some of the areas that are static now dynamic, like menus that are generated in the back end, working with widgets, and making sure that some of our image links are generated with PHP instead of actually hard-coded to make sure they show up wherever and whenever we need them to show up. So there's a few problems that we notice in the previous videos and you see right now. First off, my paragraph text, when it's actually generating the stuff for the blog page, is not styled correctly. These blog headers, you can see those also aren't styled correctly. It looks like they may be getting the correct font size, but aren't actually picking up the correct font family there. We've got some breakage with images in posts, doing some weird stuff. And that's the primary issue with, it looks like, with the blog roll. This here where it says latest post, we want that to say the Apex blog, so we want that to actually be the title of the page that we're on at the time. So that will probably wind up generating dynamically later, but for now we want to make sure that's formatted correctly as well, because it's not at the moment. These images that are supposed to be down here that are there in the hard-coded page aren't showing up right now. That's something that we'll need to add a little bit of PHP to get the links correct. The links are not finding the WordPress structure inside that theme. It doesn't look for the images the same way. It actually starts at the top directory instead of, or it's a bit odd the way that the file path works. But anyway, and we'll get to changing this styling over here in the sidebar is looking pretty good. We'll get to changing that to be dynamic whenever we get to creating dynamic content. But let's start with this paragraph and getting these styles correct for the text. Now, depending on your setup or the way that you have your page configured, these changes that you need to make are going to be different. So this is not, you may have more things, less things to fix. It just depends on how you wrote your CSS to begin with. So I'm going to be using the inspector a lot as I'm doing this. I know that these titles are H2 elements, and then I've got some styles written for those that don't seem to be carrying over. So I know in my style sheet, this is actually in type CSS. I have a font size set, and I've got, for all of my H1, H2, H3, I've got font family league set. Now type CSS is just a separate style sheet I created to handle all of my typography stuff. You could easily have those properties in your normal style sheet. But these blog titles are actually the actual text. What they are is inside a link element. And these link elements are styled by my type CSS sheet to be set in Helvetica. So it's not picking up that league font. So I'm going to need to fix that. So it looks like I'm going to need to open type.css because I don't have that open right now. So I'm going to go ahead and open that file so I can edit this or check out and see what's going on. So I'm going to add a rule for any time that there is a H2 with the immediate child A. So I'm going to use the child selector there. And I want it to take on font family league. I'll basically copy these properties here. Font weight is important to include there, especially when you're using custom fonts. So let's save that. That solved our problem. Refresh. There we go. Alright. So that's not bad. And it looks like the font size there is good. Now the post titles are a little different. obviously, between this page and the next page. But I think we're getting what we want out of that. Good deal. Next problem. This paragraph text is not actually generating the way we want it to. Okay, this is interesting. I added in the previous video in the loop around where it was generating the content a paragraph class with body. It looks like it's just created that as an empty element and put the content beneath it, which is odd. There's the image, which is also oddly WordPress puts that in the paragraph element on its own. But we'll deal with that. And here's where WordPress has decided to generate the content itself in this paragraph element. So it looks like, as opposed to in my code index.php, where here's what I did initially is I just wrapped where it says PHP the content, where it's dumping everything for that particular post into this section or this article element. I wrap that in paragraph tags. It looks like I may have to be a little bit more inclusive with that and wrap around more things. Here's the timestamp, that time tag there. See, that shows up at the top. I really would want that to be in the same font as well. So let's try wrapping p class body. You know what, since this isn't technically a paragraph element, I'm going to use a section tag here. So I'm going to store the time and anything that it creates as the content in a section, which is basically just an empty block level element for the class of body. And again, body in my CSS sheet is really what I used here just to create that body font style. So now any text inside that section should get that style and display properly. Alright, that's good. So we got that going for us. Not a bad gig there. The next thing that's happening is my images are doing some weird stuff. This one, all my images are set in my style sheet like I planned it here. So my hard-coded page, I had them floating to the right. And you notice they're doing the same thing in my actual blog, on my blog page. But the problem that I'm running into is this. So when I don't have enough text for the image, it drops down. And what looks like where the post line that separates the post should actually be down here underneath the image, but it's not. This is actually something that happens with floated elements because there's nothing to clear the float. That element, because it's floated, acts like it's out of the document flow. Other things around it, block level elements beneath it behave like it doesn't exist. Other inline elements, though, like this image, move around it. It's really strange behavior. Floats can do some weird stuff. The way that we need to fix it, though, and if you haven't done this before, this is a good trick to remember that I tend to use in my hard-coded page. We can see where I've got an image. Let me take you to there. It's far. I've got an image here. Regardless of whether or not I'm going to have enough text, here's an example of, where the image is taller than the text, but the post line is down here where it should be. In the HTML, I actually have a break tag here with a class of clearfix, and really all that's in that class in my CSS, I come and look at clearfix down there at the bottom, is clear both. Oops. So remember when we were looking at floats, clear was a way to break out of that floating pattern. And since a break tag is really just kind of an empty element to create a line break, it's a good candidate for this. float issue, to fix this float issue that we've got, because it's not visible. We can just pop it in there wherever we need it, and it will take care of any loading problems that we got. So underneath this area in the loop, wherever the content is generated, so be that my text, images, whatever I've got in that content area, for each individual post, I'm going to add that break clear fix within this post section tag. That should insert this clearing break tag at the bottom of every post section and resolve this weird image issue. Yep, got it. You can see that my images are now behaving normally, which is good. Doing what I want them to. So these are your dummy posts down here. Alright, let's see, next problem that we got here. We want to fix this that says latest post to say the Apex blog, and we want to have it styled like this is here. Now that, if I remember correctly, in my style sheet for my hard-coded page, let me come back here. See, I've got H1 class title. No, that's the Apex Outdoor code. That's at the top of the page. Here it is. H1, the Apex blog, within section class primary. And my style sheet, okay, I've got styling to take care of that. It looks like all that I might need to do in my code for index.php, latest post is currently an H2. Looks like I might just need to make that an H1. Let's see if that takes care of the problem. Yep, sure does. And then we can change that to have it say whatever we want. We could make that say, I want to say the Apex blog. And this will be something that we would also want to change to be dynamic to whatever title we give this page or our blog. We may want that title to change based on what we do in the dashboard. So we may come back and make that dynamic later. But for now, we'll just make it say the Apex blog like we had it saying on the hard-coded page here. Alright, so getting much closer. One thing that I do see is an issue, hard to notice, but I've run into this problem before. As you can see here, this font looks blurry. The letters are closing together. Here, that's not the case. This is an issue with actually assigning a font weight to these things, which should be happening in the font style sheet, but it doesn't look like it is. So I'm going to check out my inspector. Assigning a font weight helps eliminate that problem. So in style.css, for H1, H2, all the way, there's the problem. That's why it's happening. So what happened here, if I look at style CSS, this sheet I'm using, I have my import for type CSS up here at the very top. And that brings in what I intended to happen with H1 through H6 having a font weight of 200. That resolves that blurriness whenever you're using a custom font. It basically sets it to non-bold, keeps it controlled. But in style CSS, as part of Starkers or BSpace, they have specified H1, H2, H3, H4, whatever, here and set a font weight to bold, just to help you identify your headings whenever you're starting to build. That's not something that we actually necessarily need. They actually, in the comments here as well, say you should write something more precise later, which I have in a separate sheet. So I'm going to take that out. So we're going to save that. That's been removed. We'll hit refresh. And we can see now, if you take a close look, that blurriness has been resolved over there, and it looks much better. All right. Let's see. Now we know these images. We'll fix these images when we do dynamic stuff because that requires a little bit of PHP. It makes more sense to do it there. Got our post format looking correct. My links are looking alright now. This is dummy content. I have not planned for anything like this in my actual post format yet. These are some links that are in there. I could go back and apply some styling in these if I wanted to. So within the article class post, I could write a style for these links to make sure that they were behaving correctly. Right now my general links have some styles and their color hasn't been changed. And I probably would want to change that color on this page, so we'll go ahead and do that. I'll make them at least a lighter blue. Let's see what I've got in my style sheet here. Make sure there's nothing. I do have a section for general link behavior. So I can write some color properties here. And let's see. FFF would be white. RGB. I want this to be more blue than anything else. Let's try that. It's maybe too light. Yeah, a bit too light. I can knock it down just a tad there. So I'm going to go 99F. So basically I just turned on the red and green channels with those first two values and left the blue channel high. So I get this light blue, a lot less distressing on the eyes. So I like that a lot better. So that's good. And I took care of all my links that way, just all over the page. That's how my links will appear. It does appear that I'm having some hover problems up here for the nav bar. This is, I'll check into it real quick. It may not be worth fixing yet because we're going to generate the nav dynamically and the styling will change a little bit then. So if it's an easy fix, we'll go ahead and take care of it, but if not, we'll wait because things will likely change anyway. So UL nav li and a. Let's see. So my current style sheet, when I hover over the link element inside there, I'm supposed to get a background color change. That's interesting. So I've still got nav, primary, link element. It may be that because it doesn't see any valid href attribute that it's not observing that hover state. We'll try that real quick, but if that's not what we're looking for, we'll wait to fix this when we do the navigation itself. So that would be in header PHP, and we'll link this one to let's just give it a, this is nowhere within our blog, we're just going to give it a Clemson.edu to see if it's looking for a valid address in order to determine that it's actually a link. This is strange. So that is indeed a valid link. For some reason it's behaving like I cannot interact with these elements, because I'm not actually able to click on this. Strange, strange indeed. Well, we'll troubleshoot this one a little bit more when we get to navigation, because that styling will change anyway, and figure out exactly what's going on there. But overall, we've got our styling in here now, sans a couple of images over there that we'll fix here in a minute. But for the most part, we've got our blog looking like, or our blog page looking like we wanted to look over from our hard-coded page. Everything's pretty much transferred. So that's good. We'll next work on creating some dynamic stuff, doing the menus first. We'll do one on that. Then we'll look at doing some widgets, and also a really quick video on getting images, consistent images that show up everywhere throughout your blog, linked up properly using PHP.